Hello, BookTube. All right, we're doing a 12.3K Q&A, and we're up to, I think this is part 4. And we are up to William Fett. Hi, Steve. What are your thoughts on the writings of Richard North Patterson and Jeffrey Archer? I like them both. They're exactly what you think they are. There's no hidden brilliance in either one of them, but they're enjoyable. Uh, Raymond Hawley says, when did you meet Harold Bloom? Have I ever actually officially said that I met Harold Bloom? Any anecdotes about your interactions with him? He was a wonderful man. He had his uh, brittle, caustic opinions, but he maintained a large part of his mind was kept open and wondering every bit as much as when he was 17. The only drawback was that he aged. He got older, and I don't mean physically. He got older. He became more brittle, stiffer in his judgments. He came to think there's more and more areas where I don't want to know. I don't want to learn anything. I already know what I think about that subject. That there is no excuse for being that kind of old, for growing that kind of old. There's no excuse for doing it. It makes you very boring. And it was a crime to watch him get a little more boring decade by decade. Anyway, let's just move on. Isaiah Armstrong says, how do you decide what videos you plan to make in an average day? Mail videos. I'm surprised there aren't more questions like this. This kind of question seems never to come up. Mail videos are easy, but what makes you decide to make a tag or a starter kit video? I know those videos usually take off-camera work before you make them. Would that put you off from making them? I remember you saying that once BookTube became work, you would stop. Yes, I have said that many times, that if BookTube became work, I would stop, but not that kind of work. Preparing for, getting my ducks in order to have a more detailed conversation with you is not what I consider work. When I talk about work, I mean laying audio tracks or syncing video in an editing program or something like that, where I can't imagine myself doing that unless it were really easy. YouTube could make it really easy. They can make it drag and drop, the way Squarespace does, for instance, or Bluehost or whatever. They could make it drag and drop. They could easily do that, and they don't. Because they have financial investments in the third-party apps they want you to use instead. But they could, especially since we're generating a massive amount of income for them. Something like that I would do, but in terms of your actual question, I actually think about it. I actually think about it. Most nights, around 3 or 4, I grudgingly get a little sleep, and then I wake up gradually with the dawn. And the Bean is a late sleeper. She is not a morning person. She doesn't like getting up early. If I tried to get her out at 6 in the morning, which is a wonderful time to go for a walk, she would start cursing at me in German. I'm sure she would. She doesn't want to do that. 10 is her earliest sometimes. But during that pause, that quiet time in the morning where I'm taking an inventory, when you reach a certain age, you're very happy that is not a bad moment in the morning. Reaching that moment without disfigurement, pain, discomfort is really nice. None of you believe that because you're not old enough, but when you get there, you'll see what I mean. But during that moment, those moments, I think about my day. I think about, what deadlines do you have? Which ones are non-fungible? They absolutely have to be done today. Which ones involve money? Which ones don't? I don't put all that much emphasis on that one way or another, but I do like to distinguish it in my mind. And also, you're going to talk with your imaginary BookTube friends today. You know you're going to do it. So how are you going to do that? What do you really want to do today? For instance, do you have ongoing things? I have a library tour that's ongoing, so that's a video. Does anybody else have something ongoing? Do you have a team up or an event of some kind? Is there an event that you want to shout out, something that's new? Well, okay, great. I shout out those things all the time. I try to. Is there a team up that you're doing? Like, for instance, my Mayberry Book Club with Matthew at Mayberry Book Club, or Comic Book Wednesday with Michael K. Vaughan. What kind of a day is that? Are there any hallowed BookTube traditions that you want to observe? Tag Tuesday, for instance. Is there a really good tag that you haven't done yet? Something that you'd find fun to do? Is there a discussion going around that you'd like to do? That sort of thing. I shift all of those variables during those quiet moments at the beginning of the day and then figure out what I want to do. I've sort of set an artificial ceiling that I won't do more than 5 videos in any one day, but that I'll never do none. unless I'm swamped with work, in which case I will tell you ahead of time, I'm swamped with work, I might not get to do a video tomorrow. But otherwise, there are a lot of people that I know out there, and this is going to sound very self-aggrandizing. It's not meant to be. It blows me away. It's not meant to sound this way at all. But there are a lot of people out there that really look forward to a little visit with me every day. I've had emails from lots and lots of people. Lots of you have written and said, my grandmother she's not quite all there anymore, and she loves The Man with the Dog. She she waits for it. You're TV to her, but you're her favorite TV. So please let me know if there's not going to be a video that day so I can queue up some older ones for her. Lots and lots of people have emailed me and said, my kids love sitting there and listening to you. It's amazing to me. They're running around like demon-infested creatures until you come on the screen, and then they just sit and listen. And I know they don't understand half of what you're talking about, but there's something about it. It's a wonder. Could you please make 2-hour-long videos? That sort of thing. I've heard that from parents over the years. So it's virtually never a case where I wake up and think, well, I don't want to make any videos. I don't actually know how booktubers do that. I don't know how there's so much to talk about. I don't know how booktubers wake up in the morning, usually from 10 hours sleep. Let's leave that to another day, and say, I don't want to make any videos today. I don't know how that happens, but people do. I always have lots of things to talk about. I just have to decide, the first thing is the workload. And then looking at that determines the rest, because that determines how there's the workload, and then there's lavish amounts of time with Frida. Lavish amounts of time on walks, lavish amounts of time just hanging out and talking, playing, cuddling with her. I want lavish amounts of time with that. There were large chunks of time in my life where I dreamed of having the freedom to do that. Where I had, like, for instance, retail job and had to go to that job and be gone for 10 hours out of the day with my dogs having nothing to do, no me, until I get back. I longed for that kind of freedom, so I make sure to indulge in it. And every once in a while, there are actual errands that require me to put on pants to go outside into the world. So I do. I don't know how. I don't know if I could describe how I do it, but I definitely go through that process at the beginning of every day. In the quiet moments of dawn, I go through that process of what kind of videos do you want to make today? And it's lots of fun. It is not the slightest bit less fun here at year 5. I started in, I think, March, 5 years ago. It's not the slightest bit less fun now than it was then. In fact, more so, because now I know lots of people. Now it feels like real conversations being had. I love it. The short of it is that I love it. Coach Drive number 1 says, can you take us through a history of you? Your background / overview of life. And Leo Percara jumps in with, you should watch the video. And what Leo is referring to there is that in the video where I call for these questions, I say, make sure it's a question I can answer in a Q&A, not an hour-long discussion or something like that. Leo is being, this is a trend that's cropping up in this Q&As, people jumping in to respond to questions on their own. I don't know how we're ever going to get through these if that becomes normal. But the Coach Drive 1, if you did watch the video, you would see that, of course, I can't answer a question about my whole biography and world overview in a Q&A. That just doesn't work. I'm trying to get through these. Videos on the subject I could do if I were the god of all fatuous idiots, because the kind of people who make life overview philosophy videos are typically the type of people that I roast on this channel, not imitate. But obviously I can't answer a question this big in a Q&A. That's what Leo is talking about. Bryce Fuqua says, what is your opinion of the world's wealthiest novelist, Mackenzie Scott? Is Mackenzie Scott the world's wealthiest novelist? How do we know that? I know the testing of Luther Albright won an American Book Award, but I also know how you feel about book prizes. Are her books worth reading? I think I've only read that one, and it was okay. JPD Manchester says, whether from the literary world or in your life generally, is there anyone who you would consider to have had a great influence or impact on your life, your sainted ma and your many four-legged companions aside? Yeah, I had one teacher. I had many teachers in my life, but I had one teacher who was that one teacher. Those of you who had that one teacher will know what I'm talking about. One teacher who showed me what reading could be, showed me that books were not just an adventure, but a great adventure, and that they were a whole world you could explore infinitely. I had many teachers who assigned reading to me, but I had one teacher who showed me that. And so that's a huge influence. Catherine Ryan says, I love your channel, good stuff. Why, thank you. Have you ever... Okay, you love my channel, but you must not be familiar with my channel if you're asking me a have you read question. Have you read H.L. Mencken? I have read H.L. Mencken, and I like him plenty. I don't love him the way his fans do. The reason why I'm contorting my face here is because I read all day long, every day, and I have since before your parents were born. So have you read H.L. Mencken is a weird question to ask me. I always have a reaction to have you read questions, especially when the follow-up, when the name at the other end of it. I have read H.L. Mencken, yes. And before you ask, all of it. Okay, Candace Uri says, Steve, can you put your theology hat on and give any thoughts or opinions on the Book of Enoch? It makes for really fascinating reading. I'm not sure you need theology to know that. You can read it. You don't need to know anything about theology to read the Book of Enoch. It's full of science fiction, full of fantasy. Really interesting. It's not true any more than any other book is true, but it's really interesting to read. Wish there were a nice popular edition, maybe illustrated, would be really great. Somebody's missing an opportunity there to do that, unless it exists and I don't know about it. Joe Buckley says, are you one of those people who must have an answer for everything, or can you say, I don't know? Well, I say I don't know plenty. If I don't know about a subject, what would I guess I was going to ask, if I don't know about a subject, what would I say other than I don't know? But I guess we both know people who do just act like they know. No, I'd hope that you know from this channel that if I encounter something I don't know anything about, I say I don't know. Chrisam70 says, would you be willing to review your ideas for an intro to the Western canon? Well, I don't know what that means. By review, do you mean revise? No. No, the Western canon already exists. It's already a thing. I didn't make it. I just described it. So, no. My Western canon starter kit, if that's what you're referring to, is meant to be very abbreviated. It's very abbreviated. There are a lot of other names that I can include. That wouldn't be reviewing. If you by reviewing here you mean revising, I wouldn't revise it. No. I mean, it's gone from the pedagogical world. It's not. The Western canon is scorned now. And most people who are going into most colleges and universities, especially in America, where the rot has reached the core, are told that they are introduced to the Western canon merely to mock it as dead white men, Western imperialism, sexism, the patriarchy, all that sort of nonsense. So that they're not taught to like it. They're not taught there's anything good in it. They're not even taught it in most cases, and that will just accelerate. But review it, no. Unless, I don't know what you'd mean other than that. Look back at the videos. I'm the one who made them. I remember them. I don't know. I guess maybe I don't know what the question means. James Holder says, do you still subscribe to National Geographic? I do. And where do you get your eye-catching ebook covers from? I have my sources. They are quite good. Jonas Zanzibar. Why can't my name be Jonas Zanzibar? What do you think about the Brandon Sanderson Kickstarter situation? Yes, it's amazing. It's amazing, isn't it? He announced that he has tons and tons, thousands of pages of material that he has just been generating during lockdown. Amazing. Just amazing. And, I'm not the first person to say this, but obviously a harbinger of the future. Why would Brandon Sanderson bother with the falderall of traditional publishing if this works for him? If it works for him 10 times as much? If the financial yield is 10 times as great, why would he bother? Who in the world who loves Brandon Sanderson is going to miss a Brandon Sanderson novel? Regardless of what format it comes in, regardless of who publishes it. And if he knows that, why would he bother propping up Tor or anybody else? Why would he bother to do it? Why wouldn't he, in other words, eliminate the middleman? And if he could do it, why wouldn't a whole bunch of people do it? I think there's a strong argument to be made that publishing is going eventually to go the way of subscription services for cable, where once upon a time it was you get a package of networks, then you got a couple of packages with different networks, and now every network has their own original programming. And all they want is to create a hit that makes them must buy for you. And you get all the other satellite stuff that they're producing, but you're buying it for that hit. They're all dreaming of that now. Publishers, our authors, the ones that command several million following, I don't know why they aren't all doing something like that. Something far more weaponized than what Brandon Sanderson appears to be contemplating. Let's see here. Faisal Hadi says, is there any book that reminds you with the current Russian-Ukraine crisis? It's like I mentioned to people who've been emailing with me. Feel free to email me, all of you. Feel free to Voxer with me, all of you. There's no paywall. I'm not requiring that you, I don't know, pledge $1 on Patreon. $1 a month certainly isn't going to bother you, and if 1,000 of you did it, I would suddenly be freed from my grueling routine at the box factory. I'm not requiring any of that. Feel free to Voxer me or email me anytime you like. But as I've been saying to people who have asked me that in those venues, the main things that I would recommend are about Hitler, not about Putin. These things take very familiar formula. In Putin's case, he was ripping off Hitler right down to specific wordage, down to specific wording of, I'm going to create a crisis, I'm going to say that the parts of your country I want to annex actually want me to annex them, and that'll be my cause for moving in, and I'm going to test the will of the Western world as I do it. There's nothing in Ukrainian history or Russian history that you could brush up on to understand the nuances here. There aren't any nuances here. Ukraine was an old, independent, established democratic country that's just been physically invaded by a more powerful neighbor. That's a song as old as time, so that you don't need a primer on Ukraine to know that. Let's see here. Eric asks, what are your thoughts on Tinkers by Paul Harding? I liked it. Tripp says, how close are we to World War III? How do you see the Ukraine crisis unfolding? How should NATO react? NATO, so far, led by a responsible U.S. president, is doing what I would say is pretty much the right thing. The thing to avoid here is World War III. And especially now that we know that the head of the aggressor country might be a little bit on the unhinged side, that he might be just enough invested so that he will try it. I myself, what's the matter, baby? You want to get down? There you go. I myself am of the opinion that he would be stopped if he tried to start World War III, that his own generals would stop him. They don't want to die, and they would. I don't believe in the mindless automaton loyal Russian military figure. I don't believe in that. I think the reason that we've never had a thermonuclear exchange with the Soviet Union is because that doesn't exist, because that mythology is not real. But I don't know. I don't think we're close to World War III, mainly because it seems to me like all powers concerned know that they don't want that. But as to the rest of it, Russia invaded a sovereign democratic country in the full view of the world. If the world wants to enact brutal sanctions, 10 times more brutal than they already are, Russia can't say, well, you can only sanction me so much and otherwise no, or I'll nuke you. There has to be a point at which the rest of the world says, well, you don't get to dictate that. You're the one who chose to do this. Withdraw. If you don't like these sanctions, withdraw. We shall see. Like the rest of you, I would imagine, I am doom scrolling on my phone many hours when I should not be. To the point where I've actually started to think to myself, you should control this. Except it's a major piece of world news that's happening every day. God, though, mainstream news, I know this is far afield of your question, you poor thing, but mainstream news coverage, oh my God, it's just so excruciatingly bad. It's just so awful. For mainstream, I've pretty much had to restrict myself to the PBS NewsHour. And even there, the minute you get away from Judy, the minute she hands the ball off to some grandstander in Poland or whatever, it's just excruciating. I just, anyway. Ryan Mahokey says, how many times have you read the Bible cover to cover? I honestly don't know, Ryan. I honestly don't know. The King James Bible is one of my favorite things to read. I don't stress it much on this channel, but I know the Bible inside and out. The only time that people ever realize that are occasionally over the years, some people, including one minister in Minnesota, I bet you're watching, emailed me one day and said, it's been nagging at me, and I haven't been able to put my finger on it. Today I watched 5 videos of yours, and in every one of those videos there was a biblical reference, a biblical echo. Not you saying according to, to Second Book of Samuel, but an echo of the King James Bible, a phrase, a wording, woven into your conversation so that you weren't drawing attention to it, and if you didn't know it, you wouldn't know. And that happened in all 5 videos that I watched today. So I have to ask, were you in the priesthood? That was his exact question. I had to say, no, I've never been in the priesthood. But I don't stress it on this channel, but I know the Bible really, really well, and I love the King James Bible to distraction. So I don't know how many times I've read it cover to cover. I don't know how many times I've read in it. It is to me like breathing. It's like air. So I don't have any idea how many times. Fit to be read. I was wondering when he was going to show up. All right, let's see what's on his mind. Sorry, you said something I disagreed with in another video, and I instructed my Pinnacle Club to unsubscribe. He has all these clubs that he likes to. He's shooting bocce ball or playing Pinnacle. He's got all these people that he subscribes to, and I bet they're all at 0% body fat like he is. I feel you redeemed yourself and then gave them the okay to resubscribe. See, it's not only that they all have 3% body fat, it's that he rules over all these clubs with an iron fist. He has a booktube channel. Fit to be Read has a booktube channel. You should watch it. You should subscribe if you don't already, because it's a ton of fun. It's the perfect example of, I always say, I rail against fake booktubers. I hate them. Fake, phony booktubers. And a lot of you have made the mistake over the years of saying, well, then that means you don't like anybody who has any kind of production value. Edits, visuals, in Fit to be Read's case, background music, all that sort of stuff. And that is absolutely not true. And a lot of people have come to my defense over the years and said, well, no, he can't dislike production value because he and Olive, from a book Olive, he loves her channel, he recommends it all the time, and I think they know each other. I think they're friends. That's absolutely true. It's not production value at all. It's fake production value. And Fit to be Read is a perfect new example. Oliver's been doing it forever. Fit to be Read his channel is a perfect new example of how you can have all the production value in the world and still mean it, still be sincere. Sincerity does not have to come with small park scars from 1872 and no production value. It can happen. So you should all go and subscribe. But he says, no quick questions at the moment, but I have a few in-depth ones I'll email later on. Well, obviously, as you can see from these Q&As, despite my saying no in-depth questions, I'm getting plenty of them, so they are fit for a Q&A. But feel free. Email me, Voxer me. I am available to everybody at all times. I'm a lonely old shut-in. Let's see here. Maximus Stedich. Oh, look at this. We're at the end. All right, we're going to finish this up then. Maximus Stedich says, have you ever at any point in your life been caustically prejudiced towards something or someone? And if so, what? And then we get another trend. In this Q&A, the trend has been for viewers of this channel to interject into the questions with answers of their own. Joe Buckley says, I guess you don't watch this channel. Oh, come on. That's a little unfair. There are 5,000 videos here. You might have missed it. And Lisa Garrity says, he has admitted to being a reformed romance snob and discussed his path to enlightenment. Yes, romance is one thing. There have been many, many others, many authors. Also, in the non-reading world, many ideas that I try to be constantly learning. The last thing in the world I want is to be the bad kind of old I mentioned in an earlier Q&A today. I don't want to be that kind of person. I'd rather die. So I'm always trying to revise opinions. Some opinions I'm pretty much sure of. Some opinions I pretty much know. But yeah, romance, in the book world, romance is a very good example. I used to be the same kind of snob towards romance that I imagine a lot of you are. And then I had an eye-opening realization about it, which is that there's no hierarchy of artistic forms. That does not exist. That is not true. There is no form of art that is just by its form better than some other form of art. It's all about execution. All about execution. There's no form of marble sculpture. The fact that something is a marble sculpture does not inherently make it better than a newspaper comic book, than a newspaper comic strip, 3 panels. There's no hierarchy of artistic form. Those are equal. Those two forms are equal. The only thing that distinguishes either one of them is how well someone does either one of them. That once you realize that, and that is not a philosophy, that is an absolute fact. Once you realize that, then snobbery towards romance or westerns or horror or anything else goes right out the window. Then it becomes a question of how is this done according to the rules of this thing. So in answer to your question, I have been caustically prejudiced towards things in the past, and I'd like to think that when I find such a thing, because such things, in addition to making you boring, and in addition to being unattractive and unfair, they're also limiting. They limit you. Those kinds of caustic prejudices limit you. They stop you from enjoying things that are out there just waiting for you to enjoy them. If you'll just get rid of the prejudice, that's the only thing. And so I try to get rid of them. And that is it. That is our 12K Q&A. 12.3K Q&A. So I'm gonna wrap this up for now and take the bean for a walk before it rains. But once again, I end all these Q&As the same way I start them, by thanking you all. This is so much fun. I am so honored that this many of you watch this channel and feel the urge to ask questions to a boring old shut-in. So I want to thank you very much. I guess I should finish this by saying onward to 12.4. We're halfway there already. Before I could even get the questions done for 12.3, we're halfway to 12.4. I guess we shall see. We'll do a Q&A then. And somebody check on the view counts for this channel. I don't think I know how to do that. But if we hit 5 million views, definitely a 5 million Q&A. But anyway, I'm going to wrap this up for now, but I'll be back. Thank you.